Today we're gonna learn an incredible way to add sharpness to your images in Photoshop. It adds elegant details and at the same time it's completely non-destructive, and also I'm gonna give you the action for the same. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here we are in Photoshop, and any photo that you want to download, check the links in the description. So first off, make a copy of the background layer. Press Ctrl or Command J. Make another copy of it. Ctrl or Command J again. Or what you can do, just hold the Control and press J twice. 1, 2. Okay? If you're using a Mac, that would be Command J. Invert this. How to invert this? Easy. Ctrl or Command I. Okay, if you're using a Mac, that would be Command I. Already said that. Next, change the blend mode of this one to Vivid Light. Change it to Vivid Light. Simple. Now, let's make a group of both of these. How to make a group? Hold the Control, select the other one, press Ctrl or Command G. This makes a group. Now change the overall blend mode of the group to Overlay. Now this should give you the image exactly it is. Now have a look at the before and after. Before, after doesn't make much of a difference. If you open up the group right now, since we inverted this, if you blur it, it will add sharpness to the image. But before that, let's convert this into a smart object so that it is non-destructive. So right click on this and click on Convert to Smart Object. Now it's time for us to add some sharpness to this one. So go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Now as you can see, so much of detail we have added very quickly. So increase the radius gradually to a point where you think it's fine for you. So a radius is not the measure of sharpness. It's a measure of how thick the edge is. Actually, how do we sharpen things in Photoshop? How it doesn't actually increase the sharpness? No, it cannot invent details. A software cannot invent details. So how do we make things sharp in softwares? It actually increases the contrast around the edges. So if we have a look, if you zoom in, okay, very high zoomed in, and let's increase this. What it's actually doing is that it's increasing the contrast around this edge. Now this radius determines how thick the edge is. If you increase the radius too much, you will see something called a halo effect. Okay? If the radius is too small, it will sharpen up just the pixels or the noise. So 0.5 doesn't sharpen up anything. Have a look. It sharpens up the pixels. Now, if you increase it, it sharpens up the edges. It actually is, have a look, it actually is increasing the contrast around the edges, and that's all that it is doing. If you increase it too much, have a look. Let's keep value here. It thinks the edges are too thick and the contrast is a little blurry. So let's find a nice value. See, increasing the contrast around the edges. This area becoming dark, this area becoming bright, increasing the contrast. See, the contrast is becoming wider. It's much thicker right now. If you zoom out, have a look, it's much thicker. Okay, have a better look here. Okay, this point. See, it's making it completely black and making this brighter. So thus increasing the contrast. So we need to find a nice place. If this is too much, see, this goes very wide. We have to find a fine place. 1.2 is fine. Click OK. Now you can anytime go ahead and change the values. So all you have to do to change the values, just double click on the Gaussian blur and change the value as you like. I think I would keep 2.1. Okay, there we go. Have a look at the before and after. So this is the before, this is the after. Adds so much more details to this. I don't know whether you can see it in this screen, but before, after. Let's move on to the next example, and in this example we'll go more in depth by learning a way to do it quickly by creating an action, and then we'll learn masking. So first of all, let's go ahead and create an action. By the way, just a tip, if you do anything more than 5 times in Photoshop, you need to create an action for that. Okay, so you know what to do, right? Go to Windows and then Actions. Opens up the action. Now I already have an action for this which is available for you to download. Check the links in the description, but you need to know how to create it. If your version of Photoshop is different, or suppose if Photoshop upgrades, you need to know the way. Just click on this new actions button and you can name it Sharpen. I'll name it Sharpen 1. I've already have created Sharpen, and I'll save it in set my own personal set. You can save it in any set you want. You can create your own set. Now, record. Now, once you hit record, it starts the tape recorder of Photoshop. Anything you do right now is going to be recorded. So you know what to do. Make a copy of the background layer. Okay. And in actions, it's very important that we name it because we're going to be selecting each layer again and again. So let's name it Sharpen Normal. Okay. Now make a copy of Sharpen Normal, Control Command J, and let's name it Sharpen Vivid. Okay. Now once you name that, we need to invert this. Control Command I, just as before, convert this into a smart object, right click on it and convert to smart object, and then change the blend mode to vivid light. Just click on this, change it to vivid light, and then make a group of both of these, hold the control, select the other one. Now, here comes the important part. That's why we named it. See, select layer, sharpen normal, if you just expand it. Okay, if you had not named it, it would have been very difficult. Why? If the background layer didn't have the name background, if it had something else, it would have said select layer 1. And if you had not named it, and if there was no layer as layer 1 there, it would have shown you an error. So it's important that we name both of these. Now, make a group of both of these. Control Command G, and change the blend mode of this one to overlay. And then open up the group, select Sharpen Vivid, see, select layer Sharpen Vivid, and then filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Click on that and just have any value right there. Okay, doesn't really matter for the action. Click OK. Now, just click here to make the Gaussian blur customizable, and you're pretty much done. Stop the action. Now, when you let's just test the action. Okay, you could have named the group if you want in the action, but I just didn't name it. You could have named that Sharpen. Just delete that. Okay, now just sharpen one. Let's test that. It will ask me the value of Gaussian blur. Why? Because we clicked on that box. Okay, let's zoom in and find a nice value for this one. This is good. Click OK once you're satisfied, and it's done. Have a look before, after. If you want some extra sharpness, make a copy of this group. Make this double, extra sharpness. Okay, now make a group of both of these groups, and let's decrease the opacity. And as you can see, it has also sharpened these areas, which means it has revealed more noise. We wanted to just sharpen this area. So what we can do, create a mask. Simple. Hold the Alt or Option and click on the mask button to create a negative mask. Okay. Now, what is the concept of mask? Black are the areas which hides the layer, any kind of layer, whether it's a group, whether it's adjustment layer, any kind of layer. White are the areas which shows it. Okay. Black conceals, white reveals. Now, select the mask. Whoops, something different happened. Select the mask, create a mask, and then take the brush, make sure the foreground color is white, and we need to paint in white in just these areas. Okay, just these areas. Increase the flow around 100%, and there we go. Just sharpening these areas. And that's done. We have just sharpened the bird, and the background is completely blurred without noise. Now let's try it on one other example and we'll be through. So in this example, let's do that again. So go to Windows and then Action. Let's test the action that I'm going to give you. Just play it. It will ask you the value, I guess. I'm going to set that value to around 2.2. That's fine. Okay. If you want an extra sharpness, see, I've named it. If you want an extra sharpness, make a copy of this. Control Command J, extra sharpness. But we didn't want that. And let's just create a mask and just limit this to just this area, to the eyes, and we are pretty much done. Okay, this way you can mask certain areas. You can have more details in certain areas and less details in other areas. If you want some details here, what you can do, you can decrease the flow of the brush or the opacity of the brush. I usually go with flow and slowly increase a little bit of sharpness here and there. Okay, and that's pretty much done. So that's an alternate and interesting way to increase sharpness in Photoshop. Now you can also use the high pass method. I've used both. I've used all the methods, and this is my personal preference. You can use both. Depends upon the image which one works best. Try out both and judge for yourself. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe. Ring the bell so that you, my friend, don't miss a thing. I'll see you guys in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.